Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, episode number 32.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's your name?
I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about staying in touch with friends and family while you're traveling. So, just our thoughts about communicating with friends and family, our experiences with how it changes your relationships at home.
Different ways to go about communicating with people and stay in touch.
And how it really affects your traveling and your enjoyment of your trip.
For sure.
Whether you're constantly thinking about your friends at home or never at all.
Or somewhere in the middle.
Most likely somewhere in the middle. So where do you want to start?
I guess just in general, I think when people decide to go traveling, it's like you kind of get that itch to go, or, you see all these photos of amazing places and people are like, oh, I want to go there. And then when you actually start thinking about it, I feel like there is that resistance to book a flight or to actually make a plan, quit a job, because it means really changing up your whole life. And there's all this like, oh, what about my friends? What about my family? What about my social circle? What about my coworkers? Am I ever going to have a job this great? Like, those are all thoughts that people have.
Yeah, and we've kind of talked about it before in other episodes about like some of the worries you have while going away. But we never really talked about maybe insecurities within your group of friends, which I think is something that happens. I know for me, the first time we went traveling, we went right at the end of the university school year. So in the summer, I was used to going away. But once everyone kind of started going back to university and I wasn't there, I kind of did have this feeling of missing out in a way.
FOMO. Yeah, I think most people can relate to that.
FOMO being fear of missing out.
Yeah, that's what you just said. People know what FOMO is.
I don't think people know what FOMO is.
FOMO is a thing. Anyways, FOMO, which I'm going to refer to right now, fear of missing out. FOMO is something that I think most people have. It's like with social media these days, your friends are posting what they're doing in that moment, and sometimes it's hard to see that come up on your newsfeed when you're even at home. You're like, oh, why am I not out with them? And it can be even more difficult when you're on the other side of the world. And it's like, oh, I've got like FOMO. Like, I want to be there. Like, what are they talking about? Do they miss me? All those sorts of things. Like, it's hard to miss those things that you feel like you really enjoy while you're at home.
Yeah, but I think it's a bit different than that. A lot of that, like, my friends are together and I'm not there. Maybe they're going to become friends without me. Maybe my place in that group of friends is going to disappear. It's kind of more of that fear than like this, missing the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, I think like the longer you travel, you go through different waves. Like I think when you're first gone, there is that fear of missing out when you're still getting in your routine.
Are you referring to missing having fun or being afraid and insecure about your place disappearing?
Not fear of not having fun. I think when you travel, you're usually having a pretty good time.
I just meant like
one example I'm thinking of in particular, maybe this will help clarify, is all of the girls I lived with in university got together for the Stampede in Calgary in July, which was only a month after we had left. And so seeing all the photos come up of that, like, we were in Spain and it was amazing, and I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, but I did have some FOMO that I wasn't at Stampede with them because I'd done that before and I knew how much fun they were having.
No, so I wasn't really asking you to clarify where you were getting this from. I just FOMO from just what exactly you were referring to by like a fear of missing out. Is it a fear of...
I think it's a fear of missing out on like the good times they're having, as well as that sort of insecurity about, if they realize that they can have fun without me, do they still want to be my friend? Because life goes on when you're not there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of that idea like, oh, I can't take a vacation. Like, people need me at work. Well, no, like people will get by without you. Like the world keeps spinning and keeps moving without you in it.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's that same kind of thought pattern is what motivates quite a bit of communication with people still at home. I think when you leave to go traveling, some people, are really looking forward to getting away and not really worried too much about sending messages to people back home, finding out what they're doing. And then some people are really really on top of it. I think you've had experiences from kind of like both sides of that, right?
Mm-hmm,
where
sure.
you were away messaging a lot of people, and then when maybe your friends were away, not hearing from them as much.
Yeah, I think like I'm pretty good at keeping in touch, and you know, having good relationships with friends has always been something that's really important to me, or something that I valued. And so, especially the first time we traveled, I really made an effort to keep in touch with all of my good friends.
Keep in touch by sending
emails, mostly. And just, you know, maintaining that relationship even though we weren't together. It was kind of this idea that like, if we don't talk while I'm gone, like how can we continue our relationship when I'm back? Which is, after having come back one time, I've realized that that's not really the case.
Mm-hmm. So you think if you need to keep, I don't know, just being a part of their life, or else they're not gonna, your friendship's gonna go away, kind of?
Yeah, like if we, like, it's kind of this idea that I had in my head. It's like, oh, if we don't talk for 6 months, like we're not friends anymore, which is not always the case. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later though, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about like the coming home part of keeping in touch.
You've asked me quite a few questions. What's your sort of stance on that? Do you feel that like FOMO?
Well, yeah. So like I was saying, that was one particular memory where everyone was kind of getting back together, and I felt like a little bit isolated, and maybe that kind of caused me to stay in touch more. For me, compared to you, I think I stay in touch a lot less with friends.
Yeah, for sure. I think like part of that is you and I, like who we are and kind of like how we felt in our social groups. But I think it's also a male-female thing. I think like...
Yeah, so I think like we've talked about male-female bonding, like male friendships in general seem to be like a bit weaker connections. You kind of bond over sports and parties and other things, and maybe talking less about, you know, your deeper thoughts, feelings, things like that. So maybe you don't really feel that super strong bond to people, so it's not really as big when you leave. Yeah, I think there's kind of this like play it cool culture with guys too. Like I know I've had the thought, like it's 2 months into a trip, I realize I haven't talked to someone, and then I'm like, wow, I should probably talk to them, find out what's going on. Like maybe a bit of guilt there, and then realize, hey, that person doesn't talk to me at all. Like I don't, which is, I think it's pretty faulty logic to, I'm not going to message them because they haven't messaged me, but
yeah.
This definitely comes up.
Do you feel like there's also like pressure to maybe not admit like, oh, I miss this person?
Yeah.
Like it seems really like, I don't know, I'm going to use the word feminine. Like I don't think to express that type of emotion is a feminine thing at all. I think it's innately human to miss the people that you're closest with, like your family and friends. But I think it's kind of like put on men that it's like, oh, I'm a man, like I'm tough, I don't feel stuff. Like I think that's kind of something that's in society, and it's not okay to admit like, oh, I really miss like this guy friend that I saw every day before, and like we don't really talk now.
Yeah, there's definitely that. But I think it's more so just maybe not having built super strong connections. You don't really miss them as much.
Yeah, that's fair.
I kind of want to dig into the idea of what's motivating people to keep in touch while they're traveling. Because I think you can have, and I think I'm kind of more in this spot now where I'm like genuinely curious about where, like what the people in my life are up to. But there's also like a bit of guilt motivation, especially when it comes to keeping in touch with your family. I know for me personally, I felt very obligated to speak to my family. So going traveling, or obligated when I was in the country. So going traveling, not having a phone kind of allowed me some more distance. And then that motivation of guilt to talk to someone kind of became a bit less. So my communication with them kind of dissipated a bit.
Yeah, I definitely get that for sure.
Do you think that guilt plays into any of your desires to communicate with friends? Because
maybe a little bit, like, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so for like a while. Like, I feel bad that I haven't messaged them. You know, I try to always keep in mind, like, everybody has stuff going on. And like, if I had a friend who had something big coming up, like something big at work or like a new job or, you know, something that was big in their life, I want to be a good friend and, you know, send them a message wishing them like luck or asking them how whatever is going. And if I miss something like that does make me feel bad. I don't know if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think that kind of.
I think that's a little bit off track of what you were saying. Like, I think there is that obligatory feeling with family. Like, it's like, oh, I haven't messaged my parents in 2 weeks. Like, I should probably let them know that I'm fine. Like, they probably like to know that. I should do that. Yeah.
And I also think that there's kind of, so I kind of touched on it earlier, but didn't really have the thought formed in my head about feeling kind of insecure in your relationships and like having you kind of feel like you want people to be as interested in you as you are in them. Like, you don't want to seem overly interested in them without them caring that much about you. Like, I don't want this person to be my best friend and I'm like his like friend number 7 versus. So I think that kind of contributes to maybe feeling like you need to communicate with that person, find out what's going on. And maybe if they're not communicating to you, you feel hurt, you don't communicate to them versus just being in a place where you can be genuinely curious and say, oh, this person's really interesting to me. They inspire me. I like to talk to them. So I'm going to reach out to them, 10 times in a row. And if they don't reach back, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I get that for sure. I think it's interesting too, like, you know, traveling is a great thing for really figuring out like who your closest relationships with are, who your closest relationships are with. You know, when you're not there, it's like there are people who just want to be your friend because you're convenient to them.
Convenient and provide some level of utility, can help them out with, you know, maybe you've got lots of money, maybe they don't have any and you can buy them stuff. Maybe you've got lots of friends, they don't have any, you can give them connections. Maybe you've got
a car.
Yeah, you could drive them places. Like, I'm sure that's a reason for people to be friends. Maybe you're like you don't like a person as much, but they're kind of like the social connector. So you've got to put up with them or else you're not going to get invited to stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, if you are that person to them and then you leave, like, you might reach out to them and they might not reach back to you because, you know, you're not convenient to them anymore. And they've kind of gone on to the next person that can be more convenient to them in that place and time.
Yeah, that's something of being at home, like convenience, proximity, and utility drive a lot of friendships. You're just the people who are close to you are your friends, and then if you don't see someone very often, they're not your friends. You're not really actively engaged in who you want to spend time with. You kind of just spend time with people who are around. You're not like, oh, this person's amazing, I want to spend time with them. I don't like these people, I'm not going to spend time with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I think your point was that it's funny as you go traveling because who you keep in touch with will evolve, because those people who maybe were seeing you more for utility, they don't really make an effort to keep in contact with you, versus some people who were just genuinely liked you probably make more of an effort. So I've kind of noticed that experience, if that's what you were referring to, where people you kind of wouldn't necessarily think are your closest friends, but as you're traveling, they're the people you keep in touch with most.
Yeah, for sure. Like the first time we went away, a girl that I'd only ever worked with, like I'd never really hung out with her outside of work, was somebody that I kept in contact the most with. And we had really great conversation while I was away. And like, she was one of my closest, like, I guess, friends while traveling, which was super interesting and kind of brings to the point of, you know, getting home the first time. I had this idea that people who hadn't kept in touch with me maybe didn't want to be my friend anymore. And it was interesting as I started seeing my friends again to figure out that, you know, that's not necessarily the case, and that if you actually have a friendship with somebody, you can kind of just pick up where you left off. And you don't necessarily need to be in constant communication with somebody who perhaps is a true friend to you.
Yeah. So it's like you don't maybe analyzing and evaluating your relationships based off how often you communicate with someone isn't a good tool. Maybe it's just more about depth. And because I've definitely had experiences like that too, where there's people you don't see for a year and then they show up and like it's exactly like it's always been, versus people.
Yeah, and you have super quality conversation, and it's like, this is amazing. Like, why would I have ever doubted that you wouldn't be my friend? Like, when we are together, it's awesome, and I love it. And when we're apart, it's like we don't need to be constantly talking.
Yeah, but I think there is some aspect of, like, you want the people who are closest to you to be genuinely interested in you, don't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it is. And
to be in turn interested in them. Like, I think if I'm home and my best friends are people who never communicated with me when I'm not around, like that, I don't know, it doesn't feel right, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I completely agree with that. I think what I'm saying is I just learned that, you know, you don't have to talk every single day necessarily to have a good friendship when you're in the same like city or province or country.
Yeah.
And that was something that I really learned in 2011, is that, you know, there's lots of people who don't want to email me once a week. And it's fine. Like, I could send like 3 emails and then they respond once. But if it's a really good quality email and there's genuine curiosity and interest there, then I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, we don't need to talk every few days or once a week.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good time to try and transition into how, when you go traveling, you're getting away from home, getting into new experiences. But now that there's so much technology, so much ease in communication with people, you can really still stay involved in your social circle when you're away. Like, even probably to the point of like gossiping and keeping up to date with what everyone's doing because you're talking to your whole social circle on Facebook. I'm sure people are like that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, so we've done 2 big trips. One was in 2011 and one was in 2014. And in 2011, like, we didn't have iPhones, so we had no phones with us. I had an iPad and Ryan had an iPod, and that was kind of our
iPod. It's like, what are these iPod things?
What's that iPod thing? Nobody has an iPod anymore. Just kidding.
Well, I'm sure it is kind of dying out.
It is
as
almost
the
obsolete.
phone, like as phone memories get bigger, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
iPods will get smaller.
It was interesting though. Like, we traveled through Europe. Most Wi-Fi was paid. Like, you had to pay for it. It wasn't free. So we would pay for it, you know, once every 3 or 4 days, mass email checks, kind of update our parents, maybe post a few photos, and then continue on our way. And, you know, when we traveled Southeast Asia, the Wi-Fi sucked there. Like, I basically told my parents, like, I'll communicate with you when I can, but like, don't expect to Skype with me. Like, the Wi-Fi is too bad here. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like after traveling South America in 2014, like, it was just such a different experience in terms of communicating.
Yeah. I remember 2011, there was a few people at the hostels with iPhones who would be kind of on their iPhones more, versus 2014. Everybody there had an iPhone or some other smartphone and they were using it. Like, a lot of people had laptops.
Like, you could just leave your iPhone out on your bed and go all day. And like, I mean, I'm not suggesting you should go and do that and it's going to be fine. Like, that's not what I'm saying by any means. But I think that there's a good chance if you left that out, nobody's going to take it because they're probably like, I don't want your iPhone. I've got my own. I don't need to. Yeah.
Just your ease of staying in touch has gone way up. But I remember being in 2011, because I was going for long stretches without Wi-Fi, without really talking to people, we'd occasionally buy Wi-Fi. It'd be an hour and then I'd get on my iPod and just kind of lose myself into this hole. And I remember feeling afterwards like, ugh, like this like really like, this kind of like anxiety, irritability, and this feeling of like, ugh. And I kind of realized for the first time then that like technology really did take me out of just kind of a state of calm. It kind of stressed me out a bit. It kind of made me realize that, I can get into this kind of state of presence and enjoyment of the present moment more when I don't have that technology.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, with everyone traveling with like iPhones or smartphones now, people have WhatsApp or other forms of WhatsApp technology. With iMessage, you could be in a group conversation with your best friends and you go on Wi-Fi and you get the entire conversation, which when you think about it is super, super cool. Like the technology is amazing, but at the same time, it takes away that separation from your life at home. Like when you travel is really about like self-discovery and meeting new people and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and growing and learning and, becoming a whole new you and really digging deep to find yourself. And I think it's hard to do that if every time you go into the hostel, you're checking messages from your friends and family at home.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have like, you're FaceTiming friends every single night, I think it becomes really difficult to have that development that travel is so great for.
Yeah. So that's why I found it's a much better space for me when I can maybe once a month blast out a couple messages to people, but not really have that day-to-day stuff going. Because we've talked, I think, like our episode on like the benefits of traveling, we talked about how who you are at home is kind of defined by external factors more than internal. And by going traveling, you can kind of learn to express yourself more and have less of your identity be kind of told to you by the people around you. But if you're in constant communication, messaging your friends every night, you kind of have those labels and your friends' images of you reinforced. And another interesting thing to think about is with Facebook and like other ways to check in, like Twitter and stuff like that. And
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, right.
You can't forget about Instagram.
It's much easier to think about your friends thinking about your life. So if you go somewhere and I'm like, I got to get a photo so I can post it on Instagram, then maybe that starts to affect your idea of where you've got to go. We've talked about kind of this pull to like big time tourist attractions and how you can really get more enjoyable experiences other places. But now when you have social media and you know that like, if I post a Machu Picchu photo, that's going to get like 60 likes. If I post a
Salt Flats perception photo.
Yeah, same thing. If you post a Potosi, Bolivia photo, probably like 4 likes or something. So you can see how it can incentivize you to go to those places because you're like, my friends are going to like this. I'm going to seem so much cooler in their eyes if I'm at these cooler places. Yeah. Versus like maybe even 10 years ago where your friends' interaction with what you're doing is probably like maybe a travel blog, emails, and then afterwards, but that pull towards these big time spots is probably higher now.
Yeah. And like, I'm a big Instagram user. I definitely had like my moments where I was like, I need to get a photo of this so I can post it. And need is a strong word for that. It's, I want a photo so people can see what I'm doing. And, that is something that I've struggled with.
You're saying a lot.
Sorry. I'm just trying to express myself while thinking. Sometimes it's not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
There is that sort of pull between posting something that I know my friends will like, and because they've all heard of it, everyone's like, that's so cool. And just posting something that I think is really cool. One thing that worked really well for me in 2014 was keeping a travel blog. That probably that alleviated so much communication stress away from me. When I traveled in 2011, I did feel, and I put this pressure on myself, but I felt a lot of pressure to communicate with my friends. And so I spent most of our train travel through Europe just like typing out these massive long emails to multiple different friends and family members, just like describing what we've been doing and whatnot. And it was interesting because I thought I did such a good job at communicating, and getting home, people would be like, ask me about something I'd emailed them about. And then another friend would be like, what, you did that? And I hadn't really thought of, because I was like living my life, that people were getting such different things for me at different points in time that not everybody really knew exactly all the things that I'd done, which is fine. Like travel is about, you know, doing things for you, but having a travel blog was like, okay, it's out there. This is everything I'm doing. Take it or leave it. If you want to read it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's there for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, but about you didn't really put your opinion out there about having closer communication through Facebook and through Instagram impacting your behavior while you're traveling.
Oh, yeah. Thought I kind of touched on that, but I guess not really. I think it definitely does. You know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's a huge social media platform. And it is a lot about how many likes you can get. And as somebody who uses those social media platforms, it definitely feels better when I get 60 likes on a photo than when I get 4.
Mm-hmm. Because we've had, like, not you, but like people have obviously attached their like internal reward system with likes. Like it feels good to get likes. So you get a bit of dopamine when you see a bunch of likes. So then your body's probably going to unconsciously move towards situations to get more likes.
Yeah, and I think it's a given that my Machu Picchu photo of you and I is going to get way more likes than someplace in Colombia that maybe it's beautiful and people are like, oh, that's nice, but it's Machu Picchu. You know, everybody's heard about Machu Picchu.
Yeah. So the one thing I kind of wanted to dig into a little bit was we talked in earlier podcasts about traveling places so that other people, like kind of traveling for others, like, oh, I want to go here so I can say I've been here. I want to go here so I can say I've been here. And that, like, staying in touch with people at home kind of plays into that mindset a bit more, like, because you can get those rewards quicker.
You're going to Peru or you going to Machu Picchu, that sort of stuff, like people emailing you that?
Even though I'm kind of just the idea that you might be changing the way you travel to suit what your friends think is cool instead of just your own personal enjoyment.
Okay.
Because you're so in contact with your friends now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely, you know, something that I think could happen. I think it's really important if you're going to go traveling to create that distance while keeping some communication. I think communication is important. If you have no interest in communicating, I think it's really important to look at, you know, why do I have no interest in communicating with my friends and family? Like, do I really like them? Do I really like the relationship? And if you need that separation, I think that traveling is the perfect time to take it.
That kind of makes me think about getting a whole bunch of messages, and then it's like some people send you messages and I've been hesitant to reply to them. Just like, I don't really want to do this, but you kind of feel obligated to reply to anyone who's messaged you. Do you get that happening to you as well?
Yeah, I have had that experience. I was just kind of like laughing to myself because I feel like I'm often that person in other people's inboxes. Like, oh, I should probably deal with this.
Why do you think that?
I think just like having other friends while they were traveling, like I made a huge effort to keep in touch with them. And, you know, I would try not to get offended if I didn't hear back for a while. So I feel like I was maybe that message sitting in somebody's inbox. It's like, oh, it's been ages since I responded. Maybe I should really email her back or message her back on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had the same experience where I've messaged people I know who are traveling and haven't gotten anything back for a long time, if ever.
Yeah.
I think it's important to not read into the timing of communication. Like, I think a lot of people get messages, sure, like you send a message and then they haven't replied to you and you're like, whoa, they haven't replied to me. Like, and then you kind of analyze it as, okay, what are they trying to say by not replying to me? Are they upset with me? Are they this and that? Like, we really think, because we are kind of naturally self-centered, you're like, well, they've obviously thought about it. They're obviously intentionally not replying to me. When it may just be that they're not thinking about it. Because I know I've been on the other side of that, where I realized like 4 weeks after I got a message from someone that I looked at it one time and then got distracted and never thought about it again.
Yeah, definitely. I've done the same thing in some situations. One thing that I did try to be more conscious of in 2014 was not just responding to a message because I had it, like making sure that I was really in the place where I wanted to have a conversation and share my experiences and have that genuine interest in that other person when I responded. And there's some days where it's just like, I don't want to respond to this right now, so I'm not going to. I'm going to wait till I do want to respond to it.
Yeah, and really devoting your time, your presence to communicating versus that's one thing that bothers me about text messaging, being at home. And I guess like now with iPhones and stuff, that's kind of spread onto the road where people, instead of Facebooking and emailing, you can have this kind of infinite small talk text message thing. Mm-hmm. Like I really, this time traveling, I really found it difficult or frustrating when I did get into iMessage talks with people. And a lot of times, like pretty soon after they'd start, I'd just be like, oh, I'm going out to Wi-Fi or something. Because it's like, I want to have them devote some time and energy into thinking out something they're going to send me. And then I'll devote time, energy, focus on doing the same thing in return, instead of both kind of half paying attention to this text message that's flying back and forth.
Yeah. I think that's important even when you're not traveling.
Yeah.
Like one thing I've tried to be really conscious about is, you know, if I read a message and it's more conversational than it is needing an immediate response about it, like a plan or a question or something, I will wait until I'm in a good space to, you know, dedicate, like to really give that presence to it, like to be present with that conversation and think up what I actually want to say, as opposed to just doing like a quick passing message that's really unthought out and maybe doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just kind of trying to please people by responding without having any actual like logic or thought behind the message. Mm-hmm. Like those that are sending like, that's cool. Yeah, totally. Definitely. That's amazing. Stuff like that. So we've kind of drawn this thing where when you're communicating a lot, it kind of does draw you out of the place you're at. It maybe affects the way you decide to go places, and maybe you lose some benefits of traveling by communicating a lot. And then, so on the other side of that, what do you gain by having strong communications while you're traveling?
I think that when you communicate while traveling, you do develop a different relationship with the people you're communicating with. Like you don't, like I know for me with my friends, it's, you know, a lot of my relationships moved from like day-to-day stuff or weekend plans to actually like talking about things, which was pretty cool to see those developments in our relationships. So I think that was a big thing for me. Traveling, like I developed a genuine interest in people's sort of like mundane day-to-day sort of things. Like some friends are like, oh, you know, I'm not up to too much. Like what I'm doing isn't interesting compared to you. And I would ask more specific questions because I was like, I am curious, you know, did this thing happen at work, or how's this going? Or, you know, those day-to-day things I found that I was interested in them.
Yeah. And I guess that's like when you're at home doing your routine, you're really wrapped up in everything that's going on in your life, just kind of going through the motions more. And then when you're traveling, you're kind of pulled back from that, maybe more engaged with life in general. And then that translates into being more engaged with what's going on in your friend's life. So you have this opportunity to maybe build a better connection with your friends while you're traveling, simply because you're also not working and not, or, you know, more present, more enjoying life.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I think too, you know, one of the questions we wrote down as our preparation is like, should you stay in touch? And if so, who should you stay in touch with? And I think that my opinion on that is, I think you should stay in touch in a way that works for you, where you're still getting your benefits out of travel and you're benefiting from that communication. And I think you should keep in touch with people who you have a genuine interest in what they're doing at home. Like, I think there should be no obligatory communication. Like, it's like, oh, I haven't messaged this person, I really should do that. It's like you should have that genuine interest in the people you're communicating with and what they're up to.
Yeah. And I guess when you are traveling, you kind of have, I don't think it's good to be using excuses, but you've kind of got it. Like, it's more socially acceptable to not reply to messages while you're traveling than when you're at home. Which I feel like that logic's almost backwards, because it's like let's say I send someone a message and they're traveling, and you tell your friends, it's like, oh, they're traveling, they're probably wrapped up in what they're doing. Which is like, you're traveling, you have more time, more energy. Like, it's be like, oh, I sent a message, but he's working, he's kind of wrapped up. Like, that's more understandable that I don't have a message reply.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it's depending on Wi-Fi and whatnot, but
yeah, I kind of got off track. I don't even remember what I was going to start to say.
You're also losing your voice. I think it is important, if you're going to choose to go traveling, to make sure that you're being in the present moment, because traveling is, to me, one of the most remarkable, life-changing experiences you can have.
And starting to out about the present location as well.
Yeah. My experiences from being away is that home will always be there, and people might be different and they might be doing different things, but you're going to be different as well. And, if your friends are people that are your family, people who really care about you, your relationships are still going to be there when you get home. They might be different. They might change. They might evolve. They might grow. They might dissipate. Right word?
I don't think so. Dissipate?
Dissipate?
I don't think that. I don't know. Dissipate is like
they might
slowly pull away.
Yeah, that's the right word I was looking for, I think. But at the end of the day, like, you need to be, if you've chosen to go traveling, you need to be present in that, because that's how you're going to get the most benefits from traveling.
Yeah. And there's this, when you go traveling, you're really like trying to step out of your everyday life. But now you have this portal back into your home life, no matter where you are, because of Wi-Fi. You can always step back and go back. So I think it's important to, maybe it's scary to take that full step, but not really be drawn too much back into your normal life through your phone. And I think too, as technology gets better and better and cheaper, like, we're probably going to see, like, I'm sure if you went backpacking in America, for example, you can get probably a cheap phone plan with data, with like LTE. So you could be hooked up and available for iMessaging for everyone at home all the time. Probably same thing in Australia for not too high of a price. Canada, it's still expensive, but the price should get cheaper and cheaper. I think it's important to have kind of a difficulty of being accessible to your friends, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think there's much value in having iMessage conversations going on all the time. Like, keep it to email, keep it to Facebook messaging, or occasional Skyping. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I really loved about having a phone was that I was able to FaceTime. Mm-hmm. Having that FaceTime was awesome, because, yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, iMessage is a little bit, sometimes it doesn't go through. Like, it is a great way to send a quick message. Like, sometimes I would send a quick message to one of my parents, just like, hey, I'm here, like, made it to Bolivia, like, survived the salt flats, that sort of stuff. Like, it's easy to do like a quick one-off message. But it's also, there's that room for like, oh, it's not going to send, they're going to send something back that I'm not going to get, and then they're going to think I ignored them. Like, I think sitting down and sending an email is so much more thoughtful.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what dictates people to use email versus text is that you don't really have the connection to Wi-Fi all the time. Mm-hmm. But as Wi-Fi kind of proliferates, eventually you'll have Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah.
All the time. And then people may just like call you and stuff while you're traveling, like anywhere in the world. You might just get a phone call and be like, oh, I wanted to see what's going on. But it's like, that's kind of really invading your ability to separate from day-to-day life.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because if you are in a hostel or at a cafe or something where you're connected to Wi-Fi using the internet, somebody could call you and it would go through. So, that's already kind of there. So it'll be interesting to see how the future goes. I mean, it's definitely still an option to travel without a phone. So for anyone looking to communicate in a more like internet cafe sort of traditional way and really get that separation, that is an option. There are still cameras out there outside of cell phones.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good experience to have, because I just do feel like you're losing a little bit by having this link back to all your friends all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is important to just, to manage it, I guess. Figure out what works for you. Try to just stay in the present. Does that resonate with you?
Well, it's hard. What do you mean specifically by that?
I think that it's fine to
just have some thought about how you can maintain a balance.
Yeah, like I think there is sometimes, like I get some phone anxiety sometimes, and like getting to a new place and the idea of, checking my email was stressful for me. So I just like wouldn't turn on my Wi-Fi until I had an hour where I could sit down and do that.
Yeah. I just think it's like phones, internet, they're so alluring. They're like designed and optimized to be distracting. Like if you go on the internet, like people have thought out and done tests on how to get people's attention to click on different things. So having your phone there with you, like it's really hard to maintain balance with that. Versus if you just say, I'm not even bringing my phone, I'll use computers occasionally at hostels if they're free and they're there. I think that's an easier way to maintain balance.
Yeah, and I think people do that more so when they vacation. Like if somebody takes a 2-week vacation from work, they have this drive to really disconnect. And that's kind of the interesting thing about vacationing versus traveling, because it's so short. It's very much like, I need to live in the moment. I need to enjoy every day. I've only got 2 weeks. I need to soak this up. Like, I don't want to check my email. I don't want to hear from home. And it's, people who travel, it's finding that balance between that, really having that disconnect, and then, not having disconnect to the point where you're so homesick that you jump on a plane to go back home because you haven't talked to anyone from home. Finding that balance, I think.
Okay. Is there anything you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No. What about you?
Nada.
Nothing more. So shoot us an email at theworldwandererspodcast@gmail.com, or check out our blog/website at www.theworldwanderers.com. We're also at Twitter, so you can look up The World Wanderers Podcast and you can find us there and follow us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.